Yo, what's happening, peeps? This is Boxing 2020, and today we're going to be asking the question, is Deontay Wilder the last black American hope? Larry Merchant recently did an interview with BBC and Fox, where he made this statement.
Is Deontay Wilder the last great, you'll pardon the expression, black hope? Because most of the great heavyweight champions of the 20th century were black guys who came out of the South. Is that storyline still a story?
Well, in my opinion, I think that's such a stupid statement to make. When you look back over the long history of boxing, ever since Jack Johnson became the first black heavyweight champion of the world, there have been countless black athletes in all sports that have contributed. And not just in sports, just in general, black Americans have contributed so much to society, to American society, and to the world. As far as culture goes, culture, food, sports, entertainment, there's just so much. I don't know what it is, but in America, like I said, they keep making a point about race. You know, we're in 2020, and it amazes me how you can say this after you have a black champion who loses to what America would consider a white heavyweight champion. Now all of a sudden you could ask such a question. It's just ridiculous. I remember years back on HBO when Ward fought Gatti, and they made a huge show of it, which was great. It was all shot in black and white, made to look like an old-fashioned fight from back in the 40s. And they just kept going on about, oh, you know, this is back in the day when we had great white fighters, and it's a shame how there's not more white fighters. Look, it's as simple as this. In a sport such as boxing, it doesn't matter what color you are. Usually, men and women who choose to go into the ring come from the lower rungs of society, and it just, the main thing that matters is, do you have the fighting spirit in you? It's not really a racial thing, and the reason why we've had so many great black athletes is obviously because in the diaspora outside of Africa, blacks have for a long time occupied the lower echelons of society. Not to their own choices, but that's the reality. In the HBO show I was talking about, they were talking about the great Irish American fighters, the great Jewish American fighters, and the great Italian American fighters, and saying how, for example, a group like the Italian Americans, when they first arrived in America, were considered second-class citizens, and obviously occupied a lot of the ghettos on the east side, a lot of neighborhoods in New York, New Jersey, working class white males. But over time they've assimilated into American society and became accepted as part of the greater white America. But as you see today, we still have plenty of great white fighters. Especially here in Britain, it's not a big deal made about it. Not to say Britain doesn't have its own problems with racism, but the press don't seem to jump on every issue between a black and white athlete. It's not really an issue here. And as I said, if you look back to the history of America, the contributions black people have made are just endless in all areas of society. You talk music, like all the best music in the world. You're talking even country music, rock and roll, blues, jazz, soul, hip hop. All these things have came from the black community. And to be honest with you, there's nothing really more American than a black American. They've been there just as long as most other minority groups, if not longer. And as I say, they've contributed massively to the history and the culture of America. It's a sad situation that in 2020 we still got these things being talked about in such a way. Another instance, well, I won't even talk about that. I'll leave that for another video. But one thing that must have struck everybody who watched the build up to the fight and watched the fight itself was the fact that Wilder has never seemed to generate a massive fan base in his own country. I don't know why that is. We can speculate as to what the reasons might be. But when you see things like this, it makes you realize, well, maybe America is still massively divided. Not everybody, not every individual is going to have these views, but there seems to be a massive sort of divide. You know, you'd think a guy like Deontay Wilder, who in my opinion sort of is everything that is seen to be American traits. He's got the big power, big personality, he's loud and charismatic, and he's a proud American. So it sort of leads me to think that Americans have got a divided view of having a black heavyweight world champion. Correct me if I'm wrong, any Americans that's listening to this. Is that how it is there? Is it that blatant? Where if you were to have a white American champion, would he be the biggest thing? You know, would he be a massive superstar? Obviously here in the UK, two of our heavyweight world champions, one is Anthony Joshua, who is of Nigerian descent, and then you have Tyson Fury, who is an Irish traveller. Both of these guys are from minority backgrounds, but they both have fan bases. Anthony Joshua's got a huge fan base, obviously he's a massive star. Tyson Fury with his latest wins become a massive star. And I haven't once seen anything on TV about, oh, you know, the black versus the white, and it's just crazy. It's not the first time I've seen this in American boxing history, but it's quite shocking to see it in today's sort of climate. So yeah, is there a divided view in America of black and white athletes? You'd have to let me know. Some of you Americans, comment in the comment section. I'd like to get a sort of clearer view on how you view things from America. So yeah, that's Deontay Wilder. Big power, big personality, loud and charismatic, and a proud American. Excellent knockout record, exciting. Why no fan base? I really struggled to get this. The things that I question, from my opinion, why he might not be as big of a star as he should be, is the lack of good competition, high level competition wins on his record. I do think of all the champions, he had the easiest route and sort of cherry picked to his career, if not him, his team. And maybe he didn't generate any noise. Tyson Fury wasn't a massive star over here until he sort of dethroned Vladimir Klitschko. Even then, not everyone was impressed because of the manner of how he won, but that was a massive achievement. That's when he started making noise to the casuals. I'd been watching him long before that, and I couldn't really predict that he'd be where he is today, in honesty. Obviously Anthony Joshua, his fight with Vladimir Klitschko was extremely entertaining, knockdowns on both sides, high drama throughout. Deontay Wilder was actually in the crowd for that fight, and he was amazed, judging by his own commentary. We'll do another video on that another time. So is it because Wilder lacks signature wins? Is he too pro-black for your average white American? Or is it true that America has just sort of fell out of love with the sport of boxing? Or is it a combination of all these factors? I'm not sure. But again, it was quite sad to see how little support there was for him. Not through the press, not through other American boxers who were interviewed, but just the general crowd. You know, Britain took over, similar to how they did with Ricky Hatton and Floyd Mayweather. But I just find that interesting. Like growing up, I never could have imagined to see an American with a record and such power as he has have such little support. I just find that interesting. Okay, so I'm going to break down my thoughts on Deontay Wilder. I did do a short video after the loss, after the excuses, which some people might have thought was a bit harsh. Even me myself, I thought it might have been a bit harsh, but that was my reaction to it. So I'm going to break down the pros and cons, in my opinion, of Deontay Wilder. Right, first, let's discuss the pros, okay? The good points. Number one, entertaining. Whether you like his style or not, yeah, he's a bit scrappy. He's not He's not great to watch as far as technicals go, the technicalities of boxing, the skill side, but he is entertaining. You're always waiting on the edge of your seat to see whether he can land that big punch, and obviously for the vast majority of his fights he did that, ending the fight with a knockout. Exciting, again, that ties into his entertainment value. You know, he comes out with a mask, the whole bomb squad chant, knockout power, which leads me on to my third point, the power. You know, I think most boxing fans, especially fans of the heavyweight division, have an interest in fighters who have power, especially in the abundance that Wilder has it. Number 4, he's an orthodox fighter. He's not your typical jab, right hand, left hook type guy. Well, he is, but he does it in his own way. You know, he's very scrappy, doesn't pump that jab, doesn't move in the way you'd expect a heavyweight boxer to move, but he's an athlete. He's basically an athlete who's learned how to fight. Not a man who came into the game young, who's got all the basics, all the foundations down, but he's a big guy with a lot of power, good heart. You know, we've seen him, not that he's fought the best opposition, but in times where he has been in trouble, you can see that he's got heart. He's not the type of guy who would sort of give up, quit easily. And he does have a certain charm as well. You know, sometimes he can be very gracious in interviews. He's a good talker. He seems like a family man, a man who's content, not driven solely by money, but a man who's quite happy where he is. Bases himself in Alabama, close to home, and likes to spend time with his family and his close ones. These are all positive points. These are all things that I thought would endear the public to a Deontay Wilder. Some of the negatives that I don't like, coming from the last point, was in certain interviews he did appear humble, he seemed down to earth until the losses. Until I did think in the first fight that Tyson Fury had won quite easily, quite wide on points despite the knockdowns. I know after the fight you say, no, I knocked you out, but that's not the rules of boxing. It's not a precise 10-second count. You have to beat the ref's count to 10. And if you watch it back, there was nothing crazy about that count. It was just an epic knockdown, followed by Fury's heart getting him back on his feet. And when he got back on his feet, he was steady. So no, you didn't knock him out. You knocked him down. A heavy knockdown, that's all it was. So I had him losing that fight. But in that situation, I could understand how he might think that he deserved a draw or a win. This second fight, though, it was a completely different story. He got battered from pillar to post. It wasn't the cleanest beating I'd ever seen. A lot of punches weren't very clean. But in general, he just got ragdolled and manhandled. And there was no question as to who won that fight. Deontay didn't seem in it for a moment. You know, I think he landed 2 or 3 right hands, which didn't have much effect as Tyson was moving away at the time with his defensive skills. And then we had the flood of excuses. Directly after the fight, I thought he acted right. He acted as a champion should and said, oh, fair play to Tyson Fury. He'll be back. And then we had, as I said, like just a flood of excuses. It was, bad legs, and the costume was too heavy, and even throwing his trainer under the bus, Mark Whelan, saying that he had some type of pact with somebody and it was as a conspiracy. It was just ridiculous, That's where I sort of lost a lot of the respect. And as I'd stated in a previous video, I had always wanted to see how Wilder reacted after a loss. Because as a fan of this sport, you get fanboys, and anything said negatively about the person you follow, the person you support, they go against it, they rally against it, but that's not reality. I like to be neutral and just observe and be honest about what I see. And to be honest, the more drama there is in the story of the heavyweight division as it unfolds, I think the better. If you had one guy just beating everyone, there was no competition. You're talking about the Klitschko era. There was nothing exciting about that whatsoever. There was no real drama there. It was just boring for a long time. Tyson Fury obviously opened the door to end that reign of Klitschko. AJ brought it back to light. Some exciting fights. And yeah, it was just, I have to be honest, my perspective of Wilder did change. I always did think that he had the easiest road of the heavyweight champions. I understand why. You know, he does lack a lot of fundamental skills. He's not the most well-rounded guy, so I can imagine that his team were being very careful. It's pretty obvious to me, actually, that his team were being very careful how he was handled. They didn't take the Klitschko fight when it was there. They blatantly avoided the Anthony Joshua fight. If you look back over Deontay Wilder's interviews, there was one where he sort of slipped up. They were asking him about the Ruiz loss, you know, and I think he said something like, oh, instead of trying to make the fight with me, he should focus on Ruiz. So he was trying to make the fight with you. He offered you massive, life-changing money, which you didn't take for whatever reason, and I'm sure your team had a lot to do with that. Al Heyman, Shelley Finkel. But now we see what a bad decision that was. You know, and it's a shame we didn't get that fight when it was hot, as it could have been, because you were looking at two big sort of knockout fighters, and I just think that would have been a hell of a clash. That was the type of fight where I was hoping it was going to be a modern day Foreman v Lyle, with two big punchers just going at it, both guys maybe hitting the canvas, a bit of back and forth, high drama fight. That's what I was expecting, that's what I hoped for. But part of me sort of doubts that we're ever going to see that fight now, and maybe we will never see Wilder come back. That's yet to be seen. So yeah, the things I don't like is the excuses. I don't think he showed honor in defeat. You know, Wilder's a very pro-black type guy, which is fine. I think that's great. But if you think about how he acted after the fight, did he represent that to you? Where he sort of turned his back on the black member of his team, of his corner, Mark Breland. You know, JD's or Diaz was talking about he didn't agree with what Breland did, and we all know from watching the fight that Mark Breland made the right decision. But he treated him really badly. Apparently left him stood outside the changing room crying. Now, who does that? You know, I understand you being angry with a guy, but is that pro-black? Is that black unity to you? Think about it. You turned your back. You threw him under the bus. A man who had achieved great things in the sport of boxing as an amateur. Not so much as a pro, but when he represented the Olympics as part of one of the greatest American Olympic teams in amateur boxing, that's not brotherhood. That's not solidarity. So again, that's one point that goes against him. Hadn't tested himself intentionally. He has a poor resume. I'd say the poorest resume of all the champions. And another thing, I do think he was a bit of a puppet to his management team. There were great fights there to be made. He turned down fights that didn't make sense. Even the Dillian White fight, you know, if you thought someone was a peasant, yet you're going to get more money than ever for fighting that peasant, more money than fighting the guys that you were fighting, and you thought you could win easily, why didn't you just take that fight? You know, why not just fight Dillian White and just wipe him out and be like, there, I told you, thanks for the money? It makes no sense to me. This man was very carefully guided to where he is today. I understand why, but that's not the old school way. That's not the Warriors way. Which is why in the video I made after his loss, which is why I said he's no warrior. That's not the way a warrior would go. So yeah, a bit of a puppet to the Al Heyman team, Shelley Finkel. In fact, he even not long before the fight, who did he fire? He fired the man. His name evades me right now. But he fired basically one of his managers for trying to make a deal for the Anthony Joshua fight with DAZN. You're talking crazy money. We're talking massive amounts of money. I think it was at least a 2-fight deal. I wouldn't have been surprised if, you know, you're talking like 100 mil. Way, way beyond anything he'd ever been paid before. Again, if you really think you can beat the man, why not just take it, take the money, and be the king that you said you are. Be the king of the heavyweight division. Instead, what he did is fight Luis Ortiz, who he called the boogeyman of the division. Luis Ortiz is no boogeyman of the division. He was just another guy he cherry-picked. He was an older guy, you know. A few years back, he was better than what he is now. But Luis Ortiz has no great wins on his record. He hasn't done anything to prove himself to be a boogeyman or an avoided fighter. So yeah, you'd rather take them type of fights than somebody like an Anthony Joshua who took on your Klitschkos, your Parkers, Povetkins, Dillian White. You know, it's crazy. And so that really shows you, maybe, like I said, maybe this paints a picture of why America never got behind the man. I think it's more hype than substance. But again, he was still their guy. The support should have been there. You know, he openly told Dillian Whyte that he was going to freeze him out for a couple of years. He's did that, you know. Dillian Whyte's still there waiting for his mandatory shot at the WBC title. Maybe he'll get that through Tyson Fury. Which brings me on to Tyson Fury. The reason why he chose Tyson Fury, let's all be honest. When you saw Fury come back, overweight, he took 2 fights. I can't remember both of the guys' names. I think one was Sefer Safiri. They were just stupid fights. They were pointless, you know. And he didn't even look good in them. That's the Tyson Fury he picked. Not the Tyson Fury who had just toyed with Vladimir Klitschko. He could have called him out then. And we all see that's a cherry pick gone wrong, you know. Even after the first fight where he fought Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin, he did nothing to really impress me in those fights either. So I thought Wilder just thought, look, I'm gonna get this guy. On top of that, he's got a ripped eye, and that's why I feel he doesn't get the full respect that maybe he feels he should get. So yeah, that cherry pick gone wrong. So all in all, positives: entertaining, exciting, power, unorthodox style, has a certain charm and a good character, good charismatic sort of aura to him. And the cons: no one in defeat, contradicting with pro-black message, hadn't really tested himself, poor resume, a puppet of his team, openly told Dillian Whyte he would freeze him out, didn't face certain people, and tried cherry picking Fury, which obviously is backfired massively. So this brings me to my conclusion. What I'd like to see for Deontay. I'm not a Deontay Wilder hater, that's for sure. Like, you know, he's one. I've liked to see the way all these characters mix and how the whole story is going to unfold, is to see who's the top guy, who is really the king. Wilder likes to call himself a king. I'd say he is a king. He's not the king. He was the knockout king, but he's not the king of the division, and that's yet to be seen who truly is. Maybe we'll get our answers when everyone fights each other. Obviously Fury and AJ, everyone's hoping to see that next, and that will sort of crown the best of the three, in my opinion. But to truly find the best, which we maybe never will, everyone in the top 10's got to fight each other. I'd like to see Ruiz v Wilder, you know, Fury versus Dillian Whyte. I'd like to see all these top guys get in there and really get to the bottom of who's the top dog. I don't expect to see Fury stick around for too long, maybe a year or two tops. Wilder, I'd like to see him come back and, like I say, take some of these more competitive fights, put himself back in the mix. If they do have a trilogy fight, he's always got that chance. He has got that power. He's always got the chance. He's always going to be a bit exciting to watch because you're never going to know what's going to happen. It only really takes one good punch from the man. But is that enough? Is it really enough to beat the top dog? I'm not sure it is. And will his ego be intact when he does finally make a decision on what he's going to do? Or is he going to be a shadow of himself? These are the things that excite me. One of the last texts on the night just before the fight, I text one of my boys. We'd all given our predictions as to what was going to happen. I told him I thought Fury was going to do it. And I just said to him, the last text I sent, imagine the story. Imagine Wilder loses. Imagine Fury has this huge achievement. And the big puncher, you know, the big knockout king, he's got to go back and figure it all out again. It opens everything back up. A similar feeling as to when Ruiz beat AJ, and it sort of opened things back up. There's new possibilities, there's new twists, there's new turns. That's what a true fan should want. I've never been a fanboy, you know. I got the guys I support. I've always thought, over the years, I thought AJ's has the best body of work, tested himself the most, brought the most excitement. But now you've got all these other things that have come into it. Look at Fury, look at what he's done. It's huge, you know. Wilder's done amazingly to get to the point where he is. He is, in a certain aspect, he is a king. He's definitely a success story. I support any man like that gets to be a heavyweight champion of the world. Whether you've taken an easy route or not, it's not an easy thing to do. I'm just talking in comparison to some of the others. Any man that gets himself into a position to be a heavyweight champion of the world, you've got to give him respect. So I do have my criticisms of the man. there's also aspects I like about him, but we've yet to see what he's truly made of. And now he's suffered his loss. He hasn't given the best account of himself because of his excuses, but we're going to see what he's truly got inside him. Should the trilogy happen, hopefully it happens early, sort of June, July time, get that out the way, and then hopefully the Fury AJ fight can be made, and let's really get this thing going. Like, a lot of people are talking about the heavyweight division right now. It's buzzing, it's alive, it's amazing. Anyone who lived through the Klitschko era should just enjoy it. Just enjoy it all. If you love this sport, enjoy it. Enjoy the drama, enjoy the tragedies, the success stories. This is why we watch. This is why I watch the sport. You know, there's no shame in a loss. The greatest fighters of all time have lost. My favorite fighters, most of which, let me add, are black Americans or American fighters. I don't care about your skin color. I don't care about any of this stuff. But to deny or hope for Wilder to be the last black American hope is just ridiculous. America is a huge country. It's got a massive population. There's always going to be a large black population that are gonna continue to contribute to the sport and many other sports. Imagine America without black people. Just stop, or any country in the diaspora. Imagine it without black people. No black football players, no black NFL players, no black basketball players, no black boxers, etc., etc. It's ridiculous, you know? You wouldn't have had a fraction of the excitement, a fraction of the stories, a fraction of the characters. So I just think it's a pretty stupid statement. Of course it's not the end. Of course he's not the last black American hope. And that's my opinion. So yeah, Larry Merchant, it's not the first controversial thing he said, but it's one of the stupidest things he said. And I'll just leave it at that. So that's my opinion on Deontay Wilder being the last black American hope. No, he's not. And let's sit back and see how it all unfolds from here. And hopefully he gets back in the mix and we keep getting excitement and some more ups and downs in the heavyweight division. This is Boxing 2020. I'm out. Please like and subscribe. Peace.